Bonjour. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about saying what you like and what you don't like, and then we're also going to talk about a special category of verbs called ER verbs. Now, what makes ER verbs special, or maybe not so special, is the fact that they're called regular verbs. Regular verbs is what we're going to learn about next. So far, we've dealt with two verbs. We've dealt with être, to be, and avoir, to have. These verbs are called irregular verbs. And the reason why they're called irregular is because when you learn these verbs, you had to remember that the conjugation with je for être is suis, with tu it's et, il and elle it's et, nous is some, vous is et, and il and elle plural are sont. Now, this gets a little bit difficult because all of these forms are completely different. There's no pattern to them. You just have to memorize them. That is an irregular verb. Same thing with avoir. You had to memorize each of these 6 different forms. Okay? With regular verbs, they follow a pattern. So for all regular ER verbs, you're going to know how to conjugate them, even if you don't know what they mean. You can still conjugate them. So let's talk about that. So as I already said, irregular verbs like être and avoir that we've learned so far, each form has to be memorized and it does not follow a pattern. Regular verbs, on the other hand, that we're going to start learning about, each individual form does not need to be memorized because they follow a predictable pattern. So let's take a look at the verb regarder, which means to watch or to look at. Now, the reason why this verb is called an ER verb is because the last 2 letters, or the ending, is ER. Regarder. Okay? Now, to conjugate this verb and all regular ER verbs, we're going to do a couple of different steps. The very first thing that we need to do is we're going to remove the ER. So we're going to cross that off, okay? And we're left with regarde. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our new root, the regarde, we call that the root, and we're going to add on different stems. Now, each stem corresponds to the subject pronoun je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, and il, elle plural. So the stem for je is I. The stem for tu is es. The stem for il and elle singular is I. The stem for nous is ons. The stem for vous is z. And the stem for il and elle plural is ent. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take each of these letters. So for je, we're going to add an e to the end of our root. Regarde. Okay? So we're going to add each of these stems to the end of our root for each subject pronoun. Okay, let's see what that looks like. And here we have it. So you can see that we have regard. Okay, this is our root in each of the 6 forms. And we have our stem, sometimes called the ending, E, es, e, ons, ez, and ent. Now here's how they are pronounced. Je regarde, tu regardes, il, elle regarde, nous regardons, vous regardez, il, elle regarde. Okay? What you may notice is that 4 of the forms sound exactly the same. The je, tu, il, elle, and il, elle plural all are pronounced regarde. Okay? The only 2 that sound different are nous regardons and vous regardez. Now, as I said, each of these stems, the endings, They're the same endings for every regular ER verb. So we can take this same verb, we can take a completely different verb and use these same endings to conjugate it. We don't need to memorize 6 new forms because we've already memorized our endings, or will have memorized. So if we take a look at the verb aimer, meaning to like or to love, it is a regular ER verb. We see that it ends in ER. So all we need to do, first thing, we're going to take off our ER. Okay, and we are left with our root, AIMM. Okay, next, all we need to do is add our endings. Okay, so let's see what that's going to look like. And here it is. Note that because aimer starts with a vowel, that we've dropped the E in je. Just like we did for the verb avoir, we had J apostrophe AI. Here we had J apostrophe AIME. Okay, so j'aime, tu aimes, il aime, elle aime, nous aimons, vous aimez, ils aiment, elles aiment. Okay, note that in these 3 forms, because it ends in an S and the next word begins with a vowel, we're going to hear a Z sound. Nous aimons, vous aimez, elles aiment. Okay, you'll see here that we have the exact same endings as we did with regarder. E, ES, E, ONS, easy, ENT. Okay? Okay, so we're just going to recap quickly about how to conjugate those ER verbs we just saw. So the first thing you're going to do is remove the ER from the verb infinitive to form the root. So for example, the root of regarder is regard. After that, we're going to add on the stem, sometimes called an ending, that corresponds to each subject pronoun. So for je, you add an E, tu, es, il, elle, I, nous, ons, vous, easy, il, elle, plural, ENT. Excuse me, my autocorrect keeps missing that. Give me one moment. This is why autocorrect is not always your friend. Not N-E-T, but E-N-T. Now, we've already talked about how to make sentences negative, but we're just going to talk about it again just so you can see what it looks like. But it looks exactly the same as how we did it when we used être and avoir. So, to make a sentence negative, you need 2 parts. You need ne and pas, okay? And the ne and pas are going to make a verb sandwich. Remember, the verb is your meat of the sandwich. It goes in between, okay? Ne and pas are your bread. Your verb is the meat or cheese or whatever you like on your sandwich. So we have nous ne parlons pas en classe. We do not speak during class, okay? Now, if the verb starts with a vowel, like the verb aimer, we're going to still have our ne and pas, but it's going to look a little bit different because the ne drops its E, and we have an apostrophe there instead. So, elle n'aime pas les tomates. They don't like tomatoes. Okay, very quick review on how to make sentences negative. The last little tidbit of information that you're going to have for this video is that sometimes you're going to use more than one verb in a sentence. With this set of vocab, most often you're going to be using the verb aimer along with another verb. So, just an example, j'aime regarder la télé. Now here we have 2 verbs in this sentence. We have the verb aimer, number 1, and we have the verb regarder, number 2. Now you may notice aimer is conjugated. Okay, we've dropped the ER, we've added the E because we're with je. So j'aime. Okay, what you may notice about the second verb is that it is not conjugated. Okay, and we do the exact same thing in English. So if you think about how we would say the sentence in English, it means I like to watch TV. Okay, I like to watch TV. Okay, remember way back when we were first talking about verbs, verbs in English in their infinitive have the word to in front of them. Okay, so we're not conjugating that second verb. We only conjugate the very first verb. Okay, once we've conjugated that first verb, all the other ones after it are not conjugated. So for example, if you wanted to make a list of things that you like, j'aime regarder la télé, j'aime jouer au sport, J'aime envoyer des textos. Okay? All of those verbs are going to be in their infinitive. They're not conjugated. Only the first verb is conjugated. Now, if you look at our second sentence on this page, you see that, again, we have two verbs. Okay? We have verb 1 and verb 2. Okay? Aimer and étudier. What's different about this sentence is that we've also included some negation. Okay? I don't like. Okay? So, your negation, it's still making a verb sandwich, but it's not an extra meaty sandwich because there's only one verb in there. All right? It only goes around the very first verb, your conjugated verb. So, we have Je n'aime pas étudier. Okay? I don't like to study. I hope that's not true. Je n'aime pas étudier. Your ne and your pas go around your conjugated verb. That's a lot of new information, so I'm going to wish you bonne chance, and I will see you next time.